The finest work from a Christian standpoint on the subject of Zen Buddhism was written by Lietsen Chang, a Christian convert from Zen, the former president of Jiangnan University, and special lecturer in missions at Gordon Divinity School in Massachusetts. Mr. Chang has performed a real service for evangelical Christianity by analyzing Zen from the inside, so to speak, in his illuminating book, Zen Existentialism, The Spiritual Decline of the West. Excerpts here illustrate some of the foundational defects and inadequacies of Zen. Thus, while Zen is seemingly commendable in some features, with its plausible teachings, it is nevertheless objectionable by reason of its serious inadequacy and sheer futility. 1. It supersedes the doctrine of a real creator. In the first place, Zen is a very peculiar and subtle form of atheism. It denies the infinity and transcendence of a living personal God by identifying him with nature. All visible objects thus become subjective modifications of self-existence, unconscious and impersonal essence, which may be called God, nature, the absolute, oneness, suchness, or tathata, etc. It robs God of his sovereignty by denuding him of his power of self-determination in relation to the world. God is reduced to the hidden ground. 2. It engenders a spirit of mysticism. Secondly, it has a strong tendency to engender, although they deny it, a spirit of mysticism by taking refuge in its doctrines of radical intuition, that is, no dependence upon words and letters, special transmission of the mind. Satori is almost entirely lacking in intellectual content, and yet filled with intense emotion of conviction, and the mystic returns from it with a sense of great illumination. The source phenomenon is common among Christian mystics, who frequently after ecstasy assert that they have had tremendous revelation, yet are unable to state explicitly any of them. Furthermore, mysticism without divine revelation is dangerous, and will lead men to destruction. 3. It disregards the holiness of God. Thirdly, Zen is a very radical form of iconoclasm. According to Prajnaparamita Hridaya Sutra, the void nature of all dharmas is not arising or extinction, not pure or impure, not increasing nor decreasing. If one understands that reality is neither pure nor impure, he finds the Buddha in the dung as well as in heaven. In the conception of Zenists, sin against God does not exist. 4. It denies the need of a savior. Fourthly, Zen is a most radical form of auto-soterism. The principle of heathenism, as Herman Bavinck remarks, is negatively the denial of the true God and the gift of his grace, and positively the notion that salvation can be secured by man's own power and wisdom, the utter failure of Zen. 1. In seeing into one's own nature. Certain of the philosophers have called man a microcosm, as being a rare specimen of divine power, wisdom, and goodness, and containing within himself wonders sufficient to occupy our minds. This is not altogether improper, for Paul, after reminding the Athenians that they might feel after God and find him, immediately adds that he is not far from every one of us, every man having within himself undoubted evidence of the heavenly grace by which he lives and moves and has his being. 2. In the attainment of enlightenment. In 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 5, Paul well said that your faith should not stand in the wisdom of man, but in the power of God. Zen asserts that without satori, enlightenment, Zen is a sealed book. But the problem is that without special revelation, satori can never be real. This is not our prejudice against Zen. Even a psychologist as sympathetic to Zen as Dr. Carl G. Jung shares the same opinion. He says, we can never decide definitely whether a person is really enlightened, or whether he merely imagines it. We have no criterion of this. 3. In the way of salvation. Can Zen offer the way of salvation? Satori always requires a certain amount of subconscious incubation. It is said that a merely chance occurrence, a sight, a sound, may bring it about. Often it is accompanied by intense emotional phenomena such as a trembling, a rash of tears, or a cold sweat. Zen. Conclusion. From the foregoing discussions, it is evident that Zen attracts people by its specious arguments, but offers no truth. It is the delusion of blind guides, but is not the true way. It casts some dim light, but does not give the true light, nor the life that was the light of man. The whole creation groans and travails in pain, searches and probes in darkness. Yet man comprehended not the light which has come into the world, and shines in darkness. They loved the darkness rather than the light, and thus became easy praise of the false prophets. Zen is objectionable not only because it is inadequate in its teachings, but also futile in its effects. Zen is inadequate because 1. It denies the infinity and transcendence of a living and personal God by identifying him with nature. It is in fact a very subtle form of atheism, disguised by the language of theism, and embellished with seductive eloquence. 2. It engenders a spirit of mysticism by taking refuge in its doctrine of radical intuition by looking into one's own nature. But to look within for an authoritative guide will surely fall into the delusion of Satan. 3. It denies the need of external rules of morality. This will inevitably plunge mankind into pure anarchic relativism. 4. It rejects the grace of God and the need of a Savior by exalting and deifying man. This will surely lead the world to eternal perdition because the whole godless world lies in the power of the evil one. Indeed, it is a way which seems right unto a man, but the end thereof are the ways of death. In a word, Zen is not only biblically and theologically untenable, but also psychologically and socially detrimental. Now, many Westerners, weary of their conventional religion and philosophy, find some charm in Zen and have become prey to its plausible teachings. If unchecked, the consequences will be surely disastrous to our culture.